I think it might be working with any amount of luck. I don't know why it's been challenging trying to get this to go live these days, but I think I got it to work, which is a miracle. So now let me get my chat going here so I can see. Okay, hopefully people are coming in. I've had yet again, I don't know why, something is up with this. So let me, okay. Hey everybody, if you're there, I am back. Let me find my chat box, which I am not readily seeing right now, and I'm not quite sure why. Let me see. Okay, let's see. This is okay, Anthony Mac, we've got you here today. Okay, so why is it telling me? Okay, Uncle Sam in the house. I am functional. Thank goodness. Okay, so we're gonna wait for some people to roll in, and we will get started because we are doing Q&A here tonight. So we'll see what's happening. Okay, we've already got a couple of questions. Not able to rebuild new habits. We will start addressing that in just a second, my friend. We'll give people, because this is a different link than I had originally put out, because I don't know why the streaming service doesn't seem to be activating for me. So let's let some people come in, and I am going to get my slideshow. I have a slideshow, but it's just of questions that people have asked in the comments lately. So let me just get to them, and we'll get rolling here. Please put your comments into the chat box, and we'll get going. So let me pull that up. People's questions that they've put in the comments over the course of the past few weeks, and we're going to share those, and it's going to be great. So let me just put this down. Let's see. Dr. Scott Benyon, hello. Yes, it has really been crazy. Hey, Anthony. Believe it or not, I was hospitalized for 4 days, which that one's on the down low. I haven't really shared that with lots of people. Absolutely crazy. I got some random leg infection that they were concerned was going to go septic. So it has been a wild ride, but obviously I'm fine. So I am on the mend, and I am working my way back up, but I'm doing great. So I'm very glad to be here, but I had no intention on not being here the last 2 days of the live, and Declan didn't want to come on without me. Plus he was concerned about me. So I'm back, baby. So here I am. I'm back for the live. So please put your questions in. I'm going to pull up my, I have some questions that we've taken from comments. Let's see. Oh, you're watching a video from 4 years ago. Great. Good. I'm glad you're here. Erkin, if I'm saying that right. I'm glad you're watching the videos. Plus, I'm glad you're here. This is the opportunity to ask questions and get the answers to those questions. I've decided when I come live, I'm going to come live the first Wednesday of every month. So I'm not going to do it every week anymore. I've been doing that for about a month and a half, moving up into our super normal week that my son Declan and I did together. So I am going to be here the first Wednesday of every month, and I am going to get the technical difficulties, all the kinks worked out. So please put questions into the comments in the videos. I just recorded a video on the new Netflix show, Manosphere, which is really interesting. And yep, this is alive. Martin Boswell, welcome. I'm glad you're here, my friend. From the UK, wonderful. I was on the phone with someone from the UK not too long ago today. Recording a video on the Manosphere show that's on Netflix. really interesting all cultural commentary on how hypersexualization is affecting masculinity, what we talk about here. So that's been really interesting. I made a video on it. I am making a post about what's happening in one of the families in the political environment here in the United States, where the husband was found on the internet cross-dressing with, with parasocial relationships, basically. So, just trying to keep everybody on top of what's happening and relating it to our work here, and especially then giving you brain hack strategies to really anchor into your own identity so that you can create the life that you want. Okay, so let's do a couple questions here. Martin Boswell, a very good question. Obviously, it's complex and complicated, but I'm going to give you a couple really good answers here in just a second. So let me go back up. I want to thank you, Anthony Mack, for the comment about changing your life, because that is why I'm here. Like, that's the mission. Every day I talk to people who are really deep into behaviors they don't want to be, and also have sexual arousal dysfunction. So they haven't been able to get out there and create real world healthy intimacy. And, I really think we're at a critical mass, and that's why I'm here. Okay, Anthony McKen, no explicit matter since February 18th and still going. You got this, my friend. Keep going. Oh, 2 free brain mapping scans that said you're dopamine depleted. Interesting. So you very well could be in the dopamine deficit state that I talk about. So when you keep going back to explicit matter, it creates a dopamine drip, then a dopamine deluge or flood, and then a dopamine drowning. When you step away, you will be in a dopamine deficit state. And a strategy, which also goes down to Martin Boswell's question on how do you stop, a strategy that can be really effective is to make sure you're getting real world healthy dopamine stacking in your real life. So, going out of your way to figure out what do you enjoy, what brings you joy, but also brings you pleasure. And to remind you that dopamine is the neurochemical of pursuit, not just of pleasure. So it really tells your brain this matters, and it will make you go towards that thing again. And that's why, the cultural commentary on manosphere is so important, because if you keep going back to hypersexualized content or behavior, that's where the pursuit is going to take you back to. The link is made between your behavior and where you're getting those feel-good chemicals. And then obviously it becomes a cycle that I just talked about. So here, if you can figure out how to dopamine stack in your real life, when I got this crazy leg infection, I had just had the most awesome boxing workout. I love to box. It's really dopamine producing. It's out in the sun, feels really good. So find the things that make you feel good in the real world and go do them. Okay, so let us see. Oh, great. I am accountabilio. That's funny. I am very glad to be helpful. Struggling with addiction back in the day. Been free for 3.5 years, starting to help others. Totally awesome. Totally awesome. So that is really wonderful. I'm so glad to hear it. Getting over the last part of the mountain. So that mountain can be a doozy, right? So let's talk about that. Just real quickly going to Martin Boswell's question. So how do you quit, right? How do you step away from high levels of dopamine, from hyperstimulation from the screen, which then of course, rolls over into behaviors in the world like masturbation or hookups, all of that. It is a matter of unwire, rewire, and hardwire. So that last mountain is, I'm not quite sure, and Anthony Mack, you can tell me what your last mountain is, but the first mountain, or the first molehill, depending upon how it goes for you, is to unwire the need for the high levels of dopamine. That can be really tricky for people. I have people make a pivot plan so they know where they're going to get the dopamine from, and you create that brain hack strategy to send your brain into the world to get dopamine, but you have to unwire the need. Then it's imperative that you rewire your brain, not only not to need dopamine, but to get the happiness trifecta from your real life. In the program that I offer, I always encourage you to go over to drtrishlee.com and go to the masterclass page. It's far too long on purpose. It's so that if you want to know the things that you need to do to be able to step away, it's all outlined there. Creating real world healthy intimacy with a partner is vital for most people because they want that in their life. And I see Martin Boswell has a girlfriend. So if you have a girlfriend, it's really important to make that your primary source of intimacy and sexuality. It's very, very important that you link your brain to your partner, not to the screen or to hypersexual behaviors. And then the last part is hardwiring. Hardwiring essentially comes down to decreasing the need for the overstimulation in your brain and then offsetting stress. So when I say decreasing the need for overstimulation, that's what people think of as boredom, right? Nobody's been bored since 1991, the dawn of the internet. So really it's about allowing yourself to feel bored and not need hyperstimulation. And then, of course, when stress comes in, mood regulation, know what you're going to do to make yourself feel better when you need to. And there's a lot of strategies to do there, but, that can be a really important part. Okay, so let us see here. Okay, so if you're free from explicit matter and you slide back into the cycle after 8 months, let me see. Don't have control when an urge comes, but overcame it earlier. Okay, so Roscoe, we'll just call you that. The question is, okay, slippery slope back into the cycle. So if you're able to hold off for any amount of time, you have at least the willpower to do that. I always say we don't want to count on willpower. We're trying to establish discipline. And first and foremost, it's about if your brain needs that dopamine or not. So regulating first is the most important thing. So what do? You debrief yourself. You break it down. What happened? What happened that led you back? There's always something. People always say to me, I have no clue. But then when they look at the moments, the hours, the days, and the weeks before, it's usually increase in stress. So you go back into that dopamine producing activity that gives you the most dopamine fast. Explicit content is fast dopamine. Doing your work, very slow dopamine. And your brain's supposed to be trained for healthy, slow dopamine, not for quick hits of fast dopamine. So break it down. Why did you go back? A lot of times it's social media. So if you're on sexualized social media, what I call the triple S's, because it leads to sexualized social media syndrome, which basically affects your identity, the need for dopamine, parasocial relationships where you're texting people or messaging people, getting dopamine hits all over the place. And a thing I've said before is that sexualized social media in some aspects is actually worse than porn proper. What it lacks in intensity, it is making up for in frequency and consistency. So that is a really important feature. That's a really important feature for you to be able to understand that. Okay, so let's see. So right now, Roscoe, to give you a really clear brain hack strategy, think about what led you back. Think about the changes in your life. Think about the stressors. Think about where you might have been getting dopamine before that. Slippery slope. It can be alcohol sometimes. It can be marijuana, the great disinhibitors. It could be going out. It could be any other screen-based activities. Debrief yourself and then change something for the better. And again, you can go over to Dr. Trish Lee. I see we put the link in here for the masterclass. Go over to drtrishlee.com, look at that masterclass, and start implementing the strategies that are listed there. Okay, so let us see. Let me go up here for a second. What happens after 7 days of no porn and masturbation? It's different for all people. That's from Dat Gregarious. It's different for all people, but many times people will go through a withdrawal phase. I know you probably didn't want to hear that, but we've already kind of discussed real quick that you can enter into a flat line or a dopamine deficit state because your brain's used to these high levels of dopamine. And basically, if you stay away from those high levels and you're not dopamine stacking in your life, your brain's going, woohoo, oh, where's the dopamine that I'm used to? I need to get back to that source. I need dopamine. And in that deficit state, you may have more anxiety. You may feel depressed, lack of energy, because remember, you're self-medicating with the dopamine from explicit content and masturbation. So without, getting those hits of that self-medication, the thing you're medicating is going to come to the surface. You might have more sleep issues. I mean, honestly, that's where my work comes in, because I use advanced technology. So when people are working with me and we're regulating your brain, then you don't have the withdrawal symptoms because the brain is changing simultaneously. That's why I'm trying to encourage you to get out and dopamine stack in your life so you can change your brain using your mind and your behaviors. But after you get over that mountain and that hurdle, on the other side of it is increased energy, stronger arousal function, is less depression. I talked to a person today who, after they stepped away from porn and masturbation, their anxiety levels went down significantly. So that's on the other side. Okay, so I'm going to keep answering questions. In 3 minutes, I'm going to show the questions that are in the comments and go through them without being in the chat. So I'm going to answer a couple more chat questions. I want everybody here to know that I'm going to be on here until 5:55, and then I'm going into a closed session for the first time ever. And we'll put the link in here so that you can join me in the closed session. The closed session is basically going to be that we're going to look at why arousal dysfunction stays stuck and what you can do about it, because it has to do with what I've seen in 50,000 brain maps. So I've prepared an extensive slideshow in there, but it's a fun slideshow, don't worry, where it shows what you can do using brain mapping to be able to identify, especially sexual arousal dysfunction or ED, any continuum there, and how these high dopamine hits keep you locked in that pattern. Then, of course, how you can use the technology to break free from that cycle. For many people, I'm here to give you the strategies using your mind and your body, but I want you to know if you're trying and you're stuck and you're not able to, it's because your brain needs more help. Let's see. Hey, Harish, if I said it right. What's going on, my friend? Don't be down, my friend. Martin, you got this. Thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. Himan, I really appreciate that. So, the webinar link just got put into the chat. So please join me after. We're going to go live in that webinar at 6 p.m. So, okay, now let's go to the question. How do you fix PE? Now, PE is actually a little different. When you hear me talking on the videos about delayed ejaculation or a delayed response, that has to do with a brain pattern that I call drained brain. Basically, you need very high levels of stimulation to be able to be aroused. PE is the opposite brain pattern. Your brain has been trained to be aroused very quickly, and clearly explicit matter, porn, masturbation, can even sexualize social media. It can do that also, because if you think about it logically, you're training your brain through that behavior to get aroused super quickly. Part of the program that I offer, a large part of the rewiring, is teaching your brain to build arousal over a longer time, because healthy sexuality and intimacy is actually the exact opposite of porn. Porn, you hit a button, the easy button as I always call it. Even before you hit the button, the dopamine's flowing, and you don't have to be vulnerable, right? You're by yourself. There's no real relationship. You have to make sure your partner is enjoying. It's much easier. Easy button sexuality, very quick arousal. So when it comes to PE, fixing the brain pattern that's in there that makes it so that your brain goes from 0 to 60 is a huge part of it. And that I can see in the brain mapping and I can show you. But teaching your brain to become aroused over a longer period of time is the way to do it with your mind and your body. And then, of course, from my perspective, that is to be done with a partner, because pornography, and especially when it's coupled with masturbation, they are super normal stimuli. Super normal stimuli means that it is giving your brain inherently higher levels of dopamine, more than you could get from a healthy real world behavior. So that in and of itself is the issue. I made a small ED program a long time ago that I have to look back and see if it's, consumption worthy. I really love the content and I maybe should just re-record it. But the idea is like, think of how those dopamine receptors in the brain are desensitized. It's like doing donuts. If you've ever done donuts in a car, my bestie's son he's in like this illegal car club where they get like a transmitter radio or whatever kind of radio, and they go behind Lowe's and Home Depot. Some people even rent cars so that they're not destroying their own cars, and they do donuts after. So what happens is it desensitizes the dopamine receptors, just like the tire tread on those tires will be completely worn away from overstimulating the tires, right? So thankfully, our brain cells are not like tires. They regenerate if you stop doing the donuts in the brain. And that is the important part. Okay, so let me just peek here and then I'm going to jump into the slides I made for today. Okay, so Blue Sky, Blue, 1, 2, 3, 4 has, morning wood coming back, but spontaneous erection still 0 at day 3. When it comes to flatline, you can be stuck there. I talk to people all the time. They've been stuck in it for 10 years. And that's why when I'm here talking about the technology, I want you to know resources exist that can shift your brain out of that neurorigid pattern. It gets stuck. So that's why for many people that I work with, they've tried. They're on day 500 and they can't get their brain out of it. So I want you to know you can try with your mind and your body, but if you're really stuck, a brain map is the thing to do because I'll be able to show you it. And I always show examples in my briefs that I've been making, the slideshows. I want you to know you can see this in your brain. And if you're really stuck in a really locked up neurorigid pattern, it can be very difficult to shift with just your mind and your body. Okay, hey, Stephen Jewell, what's going on, my friend? Okay, let's see one more question. We're going to jump into the questions in the slideshow. So let's see. What actually happens after training flatline and how is the brain supposed to or should behave after abstaining? This from Sahith. So this is a great question because there is an optimal, healthy brain performance pattern. This is what I want everybody in the whole world, but especially everybody here to achieve. That brain pattern, or getting as close to it as possible, allows you to feel calm but alert all day long. It allows you to focus when you want or need to. It allows you to concentrate at deep levels. It allows you to handle stress, have a healthy stress response. It allows you to get in bed and fall asleep. It allows you to stay asleep and then get up and do it all over. There's no need to self-soothe with porn or masturbation or high-level dopamine activities. There's just no need. So after flatline and abstaining and rewiring your brain, that's what I want for you. You get up and you go to work. The dopamine's in your work again. You go see your honey. The dopamine's in your honey again. The dopamine leaves your partner because of the supernormal stimulus of hypersexual content. Your partner can't compare. They just can't. And your hobbies fall flat because there's not enough dopamine there. That is what happens. Okay, one other question. We're going to look at the slides. Am I able to see trauma, autism, and ADHD on a brain map? Do these lead to supernormal stimuli-seeking behaviors? This is a great question, and the answer is yes. So, of course, we have neurodiversity, but trauma shows up as a very distinct brain pattern. I like to call it the low and slow pattern. Back in the day, I watched the movie Cars about 1,000 times with my precious children. Feasibly one of the best movies ever made, but we can talk about that later. The movie Cars, in there, there's a character, Ramon, and he always talks about going low and slow. And that's when I started talking about the trauma brain pattern as low and slow. It can be emotional trauma. It can be physical trauma. It shows up as low and slow. Autism is one of communication or coherence between brain areas. It shows up. I think that's less of a driver for the most part than the other two patterns of trauma and ADHD. ADHD is a brain that is running too slow neurodevelopmentally. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental pattern, which means It happens in childhood. And one of my soapboxes, one of just a few, don't you worry, of my few soapboxes is when people are diagnosed with adult onset ADHD. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. So you can have PI ADHD, as I've talked about here, porn-induced ADHD. It creates the exact same brain pattern. So yes, you can get ADHD, but the diagnostic criteria is, did you have those symptoms before the age of 12? And then, of course, from my standpoint, before you started consuming sexual content. So the answer is yes, I can see all of them, and yes, I can help all of them too, because neuroregulation helps to regulate those patterns back toward the optimal pattern, or the highly functional pattern. And then, most people that I work with are excited to have, higher functioning skills in whatever department they're looking for. Okay, I'm clicking around here because, did I move the wrong thing? I have to move a few things so that I can share the slides that I want to share. Where did it go? Okay. And we're going to start with some of the questions. Okay, and I think okay. Now, let me show a few of these, and then please put your questions in the chat because I'm coming back to it. So let me, hopefully, no, hang on, I don't know why, without my Declan here, I've got different things going. So let me see. Nope. Let me see if I can get my slides into the desktop scene, and if I cannot, we are going to primary monitor. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so question here, when I stopped masturbating, I started experiencing feelings of anger along with erectile dysfunction, hysterical anxiety, obsessive thoughts. Doctors told me I've gone crazy, but I haven't had any hallucinations. They say it's just a serotonin problem. I don't understand anything. Can someone explain? So we already talked about this, but I just wanted to be clear for this person's comment, is that these are withdrawal symptoms. So these are at extreme levels without getting the dopamine, and serotonin is involved. So dopamine, neurochemical of pursuit, pleasure, it's thought of more as pleasure. Serotonin is more of joy. Serotonin is calmer energy. And then there's oxytocin. Those are the three primary hormones. You can read about those hormones in my book, Mind Over Explicit Matter. If you haven't gotten the book yet, it's laid out there very simply and easily for you. So when you're in a dependent cycle of needing high levels of dopamine to feel okay, that self-medication, you take that medication away, underneath it is strained brain, wired and tired brain, that will give you anxiety that leads to OCD and obsessive thoughts, but it's being dampened by all the dopamine. So when you undampen it, then underneath it is that brain dysfunction or dysregulation that causes these symptoms, which is why people experience withdrawal when they step away from it. Okay, question is, could you please explain the effects of watching porn on those with ADHD or PTSD? We already kind of covered this. When trauma or ADHD is involved, and I guess this is good to really answer that question, is that these dysregulated brain patterns necessitate more stimulation and soothing. That is the reason that it happens. ADHD, brain running too slow. It's a brain that feels the need for more stimulation. PTSD, low and slow, that's a brain that needs stimulation. An anxious brain needs more soothing. These are the dysregulated patterns, strain brain and drain brain underneath. And then when the person goes back to porn, that dopamine soothes the patterns underneath, just like we've talked about. Okay, oh, you're welcome for the videos. Explain gut, diet, alcohol, health, and its influence on the brain. So like I've talked about, alcohol can be the great disinhibitor. There are now shown to be many neurotransmitters in the gut, and the direct connection between the gut and the brain has been proven. I think it was probably 10 years ago now, which is crazy, but 10 years ago, scientific studies came out, and the titles were, they're going to have to rewrite the science books, right? Hyperbole. But really it was that they found even stronger connections between the gut and the brain. It makes total sense, right? So keeping a healthy nutrition, diet, I was going to say diet, but I don't love the word diet, nutrition, fitness, alcohol is acidic. Alcohol can create a whole bunch of gut dysbiosis. Many foods can too. So working with someone who knows about nutrition, it can be really important. This is what my husband does in our office at Lee Brain and Spine. His office, Lee Brain and Spine. Okay, constantly asking the question, do SSRIs or SNRIs help with recovery of PMO withdrawals? So first of all, you have to ask your doctor that question. I'm going to answer it from an educational standpoint, right? So many people I work with will be on SSRIs, but really what it does is lower power in the brain, and it's supposed to help with the serotonin reuptake. But what I see primarily in the QEEG brain maps is a lowering in power. So that lowering in power can then also help with not feeling those withdrawal symptoms, because of the reason I just talked about. It is still dampening those underlying dysregulated or dysfunctional brain patterns. That's how it helps to offset withdrawals. So it can do that, but ultimately most of the people that I work with, it also gives them anhedonia. They don't feel joy, and they can't feel, so even though they've stepped away from explicit content or masturbation, now they don't feel even their healthy libido. Libido is different from hypersexuality. Libido is true sexual drive to be with your partner, and that escapes them also. Okay. Thank you. Really appreciate my work. I appreciate that. Have a question about masturbation without pornography. From a health perspective, is it healthier not to masturbate at all or to masturbate occasionally? And how would you define occasional in this context? Well, spoiler alert, I just recorded a video on this for next week entitled How Much Masturbation is Too Much. And I'm going to give you the one-liner, but I encourage you to watch that video if you're interested in this topic, because how much is the wrong question. So why is the better question, right? And the why is the linking of the dopamine to the behavior of masturbation. This question always comes from the twisting of the study on prostate cancer. And if you go to drtrishley.com and you go to the blog page, there's actually hundreds, there's probably thousands of blog posts there now. If you look up masturbation, you will find many blog posts there, and you will find how I've connected the scientific studies to to actually bust the myth around this. So it depends on your goals, right? If your goal is to have healthy intimacy and sexuality with a partner, masturbation's taking you away from that. It's a self-soothing behavior that's used for mood regulation. So my encouragement to you is find other behaviors to regulate your mood that are healthy for you and don't take you away from your partner, and learn how to build healthy intimacy and sexuality. Okay, let's see. Too much work to connect, trivializes, oversimplifies, or mischaracterizes. Let me see. I didn't read this one in advance. I think in reality there's often something way more fundamental. Let's see. Okay, so the idea here is that, I love it, 2 cents from the peanut gallery, which I do appreciate, is that underneath, we've talked about this already, there is a neurologically dysregulated state. And what happens is then when you feel like you can't connect, it's because that goes back to drain brain too. Both of them, honestly. Strain brain keeps you in a hypervigilant threat detection state. That's strain brain. Drain brain puts you in a self-referential state. And I've recently made videos on both of these aspects. Self-referential is you're basically getting the feedback loop of your whole entire existence just by yourself. This is what the screen does to us. This is what hypersexual behavior does to us. So, the having difficulty connecting does go back to those two underlying dysregulated brain patterns. Okay, let's go back into the chat for a minute here and see what people have going on over here. Let's do a time check because I'm going to have to check my technology. Okay, so let's see, what do we got? Can't go longer than 5 days. This comes from Gisk. Thanks. After that, compulsive thoughts occur throughout the day. It's terrible and I want to get out. What can I do? Like I said, if you want to use your mind and your body, it's imperative that you unwire your brain from the need. You double down on getting dopamine from a healthy lifestyle. Get my book, Mind Over Explicit Matter. It'll absolutely help. If you can't go more than 5 days, you are significantly stuck in a compulsive loop that is driven by neurological dysregulation. And neurological dysregulation necessitates neurological regulation. Very difficult to do with your mind and your body. That's why I use the tech. Erkin, very good comment about, supernormal feels like it's referencing normal. I've said it here many times before, and I'll say it again. I'll give you $1,000, anybody, if you can produce a normal person at my doorstep, right? There is no such thing as normal. But what that means is that it is excessively high amounts of dopamine, and it comes from a study by Tinbergen, and he did a few different studies. And if you want, you can watch the live replay that my son Declan and I did. That was on supernormal stimuli. That was not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before. And talking about, the studies done where they painted butterflies and they gave them brighter colors than the typical or the healthy or the, quote unquote average beautiful butterflies, and the male butterflies wanted to mate with the painted ones more. So this is what we're talking about. It was named supernormal stimuli back then in those studies, meaning higher than healthy. So yeah, for sure. But show me a normal person, right? Let's see. DLI6, still having depression after quit PMO for the last 2 months. I'm sorry, my friend. I know that is really tough. When you have depression, after 2 months, your brain is stuck in drain brain. And of course, if you feel like you want to see a psychiatrist, I'm never going to stop you. But what all psychiatrists will do is prescribe something to help you feel better. It doesn't address the underlying issue. The underlying issue is drain brain. I can see that in QEEG brain mapping. If you're in a position to get a brain map with me, I highly recommend it because we can actually see the core issue. I'm telling you that depression comes from drain brain. I have analyzed over 50,000 maps, even more than that. But more importantly, I completed a study, a very high level scientific study with over 200 brain maps, which is a very large study, showing that basically the brain pattern for porn addiction and PIED is the one of drained brain. So, okay, let's see. What do we got here? Hey, Sono, watching from Nigeria. Oh, thank you, Mohammed. I'm here to help. I really am. Dr. Scott, 2 questions above that I missed. You might have to re-put them in. I was trying to answer them, but okay. Low cortisol, Harisht. Low cortisol is, having too low of cortisol basically makes it so that the activation in your brain doesn't happen to the level that we want that it should for healthy activation, kind of that low power pattern that I was talking about. But most people don't have low cortisol. They have high cortisol, which creates those feelings of anxiety, or they have drain brain, which basically shifts their brain into neutral and makes it so that they feel stuck in neutral. It's not about low cortisol. It's about an imbalance in the electrical energy that then changes the cascading of neurotransmitters and of hormones. Let's see, Anthony. Let's see. Watched a lecture about explicit matter addiction on YouTube. The lecturer said that the high spikes of dopamine cause a part of the brain that produces dopamine to stop. which leads to Parkinson's disease. This is a really great comment, Anthony McKen. I appreciate it because I have always been fascinated by this too. And you know who I think of when I think of this? Not about, porn or explicit matter, but a good example of how hitting too much dopamine, first of all, being too stressed, strain brain, then hitting too much dopamine caused Parkinson's, is Michael J. Fox. And his story is so interesting and unique because, and if you haven't, he has a documentary, I think it might be on Disney, I could be wrong. That is really interesting, but he also has books out too. But basically, like, he was filming the Back to the Future movies, which my son Seamus, who was here last week with us, it's his favorite movie of all time. So we've seen that lots of times. And he was filming Family Ties at the same time. So he'd film Family Ties in the day. This is Michael J. Fox. And then he'd go film Back to the Future all night long because it's basically done in the night in the parking lot and that. And so he was drinking a lot. When he first started with his first signs of Parkinson's, he went to the doctor who prescribed basically pills that were dopamine enhancement, and he would hit those pills a lot and basically burning out the dopamine receptors. So what I know from QEEG research is that Parkinson's is also correlated, basically, it's at the root, the brain pattern that goes along with Parkinson's is the strained brain. And there's scientific studies that say that neuroses goes along with Parkinson's. Like, it's a brain that's just on and it never turns off. And that's the point about Michael J. Fox. And then those types of brains, strained brain, like we already talked about, require more soothing. They go to the dopamine for soothing, burn out the dopamine receptors, end up in drained brain, and likely there's a link to Parkinson's. So I would agree with that from my standpoint. Another thing I've seen in the researchers came to me a while ago and they did a study on dementia, and they wanted this was the study basically, and they wanted my take on it, and they weren't a huge fan of what I had to say because they said that men with dementia become disinhibited and they start to watch porn. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Plus, I've seen 50,000 brain maps. So the reason that they came up with that is because those men were watching porn in their kitchen in front of their family. So the contention was that it disinhibited them. I have seen so many brain maps that there is a marker called peak alpha. Peak alpha is supposed to be at 9.5 hertz or higher. That means the hum of your brain is healthy and strong, activation, right? In the vast majority of the brain maps that I see, which all are very similar now, they're either strained brain, drained brain, or both, they all have low peak alpha. So when these researchers came to me, I'm like, you've got it wrong. You've got the chicken and the egg wrong, right? The chicken is the low peak alpha from pornography consumption, a private habit that man who got dementia had. The disinhibition is they started consuming it in front of their family. It was a secret habit, then they started. So, the notion that dementia causes someone to want to consume pornography, I always say, where'd you get that thought? Where'd that idea come from, right? Like, the idea to consume porn, if they've never done it before, that idea isn't born out of anywhere. But if it was a habit that was hidden and now is unhidden, that makes a lot more sense. Okay, so let's see what we got here. The easy peasy method, yeah, I think it's cool, but I think my approach is what I call a neuro-bio-psychosocial approach. So basically, when I work with people, first and foremost, we're doing a brain map. I can see what your brain looks like. I make individualized protocols. This is what I'm going to talk about in the webinar that I'm starting in exactly 10 minutes. There's probably going to be 3 people in it, so if you're ever coming, tonight's the night, because I have not promoted it at all because I'm testing out the technology. So it's a first run tonight, So I encourage you to join me, and I'm going to talk a lot about brain mapping in this process in an organized way. But neuro, I look at your brain. We use technology to regulate your brain. 2, psycho is neuro, bio's 2. Bio is your body. So we also look at the bottom-up approach. I've had this conversation a few times today. where I'm like, that's a bottom up behavior. We have to address that behavior, and then it sends the signal up to your brain, right? So when we do the neuro, it's brain down to your mind and body. When we address your body, it's up to your brain to regulate it. We change your behaviors, it improves your brain. That's why I'm always trying to give you brain hacks here and in all the videos. Use your body in this way, it will start rewiring your brain. It's usually inadequate though. The psycho is your mind. Start using your mind differently. Question every single thought that you have. I question every thought that I have. I do. I've learned to question them. Then I will, of course, I don't sit around questioning them all the time. Then I will anchor into the thought that I believe is best in the moment, and I'll move forward. And sometimes I'm wrong, and then I give myself grace and I course correct, and I move on in that direction. But I didn't program myself. I was programmed by my mom and my dad and my teachers and my siblings and my own navigation. I was programmed by younger me, right? Younger me programmed me, and me of today knows more than me of yesterday. So I am always upgrading the software. That's psycho. And social is not only your environment, but your relationships. So I think that is a cool method, but most methods are missing the neuro piece. Samuel peeping in the house. I'm glad to see you, my friend. Let's see. I'm glad to see you, but I don't agree with your statement. So the statement is porn and masturbation is useful for men who have no one, as it relieves the longing, desire, and wanting that otherwise celibate life brings. Like, yes, I know you perceive it that way, but that's your perception. And I want to, lovingly call the truth to that, because that's not an intimate relationship, right? It's not sexuality or intimacy. That is a replacement habit. Now, this is the problem with replacement habits. When it becomes a replacement habit, it prevents you from going and creating the thing that's so much more difficult, because you're getting fast dopamine from that behavior. Going out into the world and finding a person to connect with, and then taking them for coffee, and then taking them for lunch, then taking them for dinner, then finally being able to have intimacy and sexuality with them, that's slow dopamine, my friend. And your brain won't have the wherewithal to do that if it's used to getting easy button, fast dopamine spikes. It's just the reality. It's proven by science. So I know people think that, but I also know you have to forego it, rewire your brain, and then get your booty out into the world to connect with people. And I know it's challenging. It's simple, but I know it's not easy. I know that. 20 days clean. Very good, George K. I'm glad to hear it. Reached 95 before. Let's go, my friend. You got this. This is important stuff. This affects your identity. It affects your anxiety levels, your focus, your depression levels. Let's go. Lock in. In my job, I meet people, and sometimes women show interest. I turn them down, but later regret it. Would sleeping with someone affect my streak? Hopefully you are now processing the comment that I told Samuel peeping, is that no, sleeping with someone's not a great idea. Building intimacy and healthy sexuality with a person, that is a good idea. So if you're objectifying a person and hooking up with them, that will affect your streak. That's just personifying, pornification and objectifying it into the world. It's taking your fantasy and doing it with a person that you don't care about. And I've talked to so many people of all ages. They're like, it's easy to, hook up with someone, but harder to build intimacy. So let's go for that one, my friend. Yes, if you never have dreams, 360-40, we talked about this. When did we talk about this? During Supernormal Week, there's a recording that we talked about this. Well, there's videos on this channel. If you look up sleep, I talk about how when you consume adult content before bed, you're suppressing the system. When you suppress the system, your brain doesn't actually catch the sleep cycle. If you don't catch the sleep cycle, you don't go into REM and you won't have dreams. So basically, you're not getting into restorative sleep. And I also see that on the brain maps that I do. Matthew D. Gibson, I think Dr. Amen is great. I am trained through the Amen Clinic. He has always used PET scans. He started to add brain mapping because It's more effective. It's less invasive. You don't have to put any bad dyes in you. You not only can see areas of brain function, we can see the speeds. That's what I look at in the electrical energy. So you can see if a brain's running slow or fast or what I've talked about here. So yeah, no, I really respect his work. Yeah, Martin Boswell, I wish you could stop too, my friend. But you know what makes a wish different than, making it happen? A plan, right? Pragmatic hope, I always say. Can't sit around hoping. You've got to hope, make your plan, get doing it, and course correct, imperfect action. You don't give up. I had to cancel the lives because my son and I were doing lives for, it was supposed to be a week, but I got some random leg infection and I was sick. And I said to my husband, I'm like, it's so crazy when you have a situation that you literally can't give up on, right? You cannot give up. You have to persist and persevere. This is your life. You've got to do it like your life depends on it. Simply put, because it does. So it's imperfect, perfect action. Go over to Dr. Trish Lee, look at the masterclass, start doing the things that are listed there. If you can't get into my program, if you're able to get into my program, get a brain map. I have to skedaddle right now so I can get ready to do the webinar that I'm doing at 6 p.m. Join me. The link is here. The webinar jam link is right here that Louis from my team has put here. Join me. We're going to get into a private session. Like I said, it might be very private. It might just be me, Louis, and the couple of you who decide to join me tonight because I'm just testing the software, but it's going to be amazing. So get over there, but don't give up, my friend. No wishes, pragmatic hope. Yeah, I love Noah Church too. I think he's great. Okay, so I got to wrap up. So next time we're going to go live is going to be the first Wednesday of May, believe it or not, right? It's already April. So right now, please get into this link, this webinar jam link. Join me in the closed session, 50,000 brain maps. If you can't get over arousal dysfunction, this is why. I'm going to show you some great images and we're going to rock it out. We're going to do it from 6 to 6:30. So I hope to see you over there. Okay, thanks for joining me, everybody. Really appreciate it. Keep going, keep rocking it out, and I will see you in a month. Okay, unless I see you in a minute, right? Okay, I'll see you over there.